Hey there, everyone. It's Alonzo Von Threet, 123, AVT Pro, Advanced Visualization Technology Productions. And I wanted to give a special thank you and shout out to uh, EMRCA, who is a developmental architectural museum development. I don't know all that they're uh, that they do. I was a very small part, but a contributor to this facade. So I resculpted a Lidar scan. And so it was a low resolution scan, and it was printed in 3D by Jina Moore, and Jung, Ha was also part of it. And so I did a little vlog about it, but I didn't talk about it because it wasn't actually published. So now that it's published, I wanted to kind of give a thank you and thank you for having me as part of the process and whatever the component it was. And I look at it as, oh, I did work for the Guggenheim, which I actually didn't do it for the Guggenheim. I did it for a presentation and part of a process uh, for uh, for another presentation. So there's a lot of layers and tiers to it. If I was a Guggenheim artist, it would be a totally different thing. But I have done work for museums and I do production. I'm the hired hands, so to speak. So I do digital sculpture. And so I did this for Daniel Lee. I did a couple of sculptures, very large, very intense sculptures by Daniel Lee. I do animation and all kind of things. So uh, we're working on stuff now. So this was like a 6 foot. Let me show it. This actually shows the scale more. So it's almost like lightning striking twice. So I'm doing work. I did these animations back here as well as the sculpture, but it's all directed very meticulously directed by Daniel Lee, uh, excruciatingly so. I hate to say it like that, but no joke, they are really, whew, it's intense work. And so I was very blown away to be part of that, just as much as I'm just amazed to be a part of this project. So there's a Daniel's design, and we're still doing parts of this. Daniel has actually been involved in Oxford and wrote for Yale. So those kind of things mean a lot to me. I actually did a study, a personal independent study on Oxford, and because I was using one of their AI software, one of the alumni who has a PhD in artificial intelligence actually produced a cinematic software for stunt doubles, and it's one of my favorites. So when I'm highly influenced by their software, the products, or the experience, I do my own research. So I did some research on the director of EMRCA, who is Thomas Krens, but very, very internationally famous. Does everything from the Venice Guggenheim, so he directed the Guggenheim. So it's just really amazing uh, the work that he has done. And so, of course, that's not my level, my tier, and I hope I'm not overstepping in any way. Uh, and so this is Jung. I actually was actually on a communications call, and this is Jina, and so I just very delightful working with them, and I'm glad they don't mind my sense of humor and my uh, you know I have other names for myself, very bohemian artist ways, but really I really enjoy. I actually called this. I told him a joke on the conference call. I called the sculpture Rufus because when I was working as computer graphics specialist for Philip Morris in New York, Park Avenue, and 42nd. As I say, it was directly across my window. So if you had this big sculpture looking into your window, you want to be friends with it, right? So I named him a friendly name, Rufus, and so uh, so I'd say, "Hey, Rufus," every morning. And so this was the angle. As a matter of fact, I used one of my photos that I took from that window as reference and for to help sculpt this. So I have a sentimental connection. Plus, this is Mercury, mythological Greek god, and you can tell, if you know anything about Flash Gordon or me with my comic book background as I started as an artist. And matter of fact, let me tell you a quick story about that. I used to finger paint at the Albright Knox here in Buffalo. So I overheard the teacher talking to my mom, God rest her soul in peace, that I had talent, and ever since then I said, "Hey, I'm going to be an artist," and it was a high influence. Uh, and I used to go in these buildings. Here I am, 40, 50 years later, at the Albright Knox. They have a new building, and these buildings I actually would go in and would spree lunk, just go in the buildings and just to do artwork. And so I wasn't a graffiti artist, but I put my name on the wall digitally. So anyway, but they really polished off those buildings. They're amazing. So to be affiliated with a museum in any way as an artist is like, it's kind of like a dream come true. Definitely one of the goals as an artist, or objectives as an artist, that you actually wouldn't think would happen or come true. And so I have a connectivity law. If I was actually working, if I was an artist and working in the building any kind of way, I don't care if I was security, I would say, "Hey, I'm part of the art team." But I actually did sculpt these, but I sculpted them from a Lidar scan, which they did in a scan. So if you say Lidar, radar, they scan in 3 dimensions. And so this is amazing technology, convergent technology, that has become available in the last couple of decades, and really more so in the last decade, to be utilized in producing these types of 3D works. And they're used in all types of ways. So I want to show you a sample of the resolution of the LiDAR scan. And this is already after I imported into ZBrush. So that was a task, and some of it didn't make it that well. And so I had to correct and fix the geometry. But I got a good scan. The scan that they did was really nicely done, but it didn't have any of the detail. So this would be considered a very low resolution polygon representation. But the wonderful thing about it is that it had all the proportions, all the shapes. So my job was to reintroduce or reestablish the detail and to bring it up to the artistic quality. And so what I want to say about that is, because they mentioned that it was meticulous precision, and I rarely get a chance to draw or sculpt from actual photos. And so to actually use the photo reference that they had provided, and to get it as much as possible to the level that they needed. But also, I have studied Baroque, Renaissance, Rococo. Like, I have my favorite artists, uh, Caravaggio, El Greco, besides the ones that are named after Ninja Turtles, Donatello. But I actually, really do enjoy it, and I do a lot of studying on those type of art. And so I actually studied more in this to get in. But you also have to understand anatomy, and those artists have a very specific type of anatomy that I was able to study. And even though I'm not, I've never been to Venice or to the Louvre, I really do study those types of artists, and I study them a lot more than I study contemporary artists. So a lot of people who do digital design, they study their peers, and I think that's good. But you should also study the masters. And so I had the very fortunate opportunity to really go in. This was the actual first design sculpt, and which I got the bid for the project. And, and I try to be humble, but sometimes I'm not. So they asked me to do a test sculpt, and I'm like, I don't do tests. So, David is a very good old in between. I do have confidence in my work. So I'm like, look, you either want this. But I'm so honored and so feel very privileged to be a part of it and to use it. And so it was a very great opportunity for me to try to achieve this level of detail through this particular type of scan. And there's again, it was a great scan. I didn't have to rebuild proportions, but you can see that there's no finger detail here, and there's no hair, no cloth, and nothing there. So I had to rebuild all the detail. There were some indications of the clothing. And so this cloth, it's not like some of the other stuff where I actually do cloth simulation and wrinkles that are built based on cloth simulation. I had to hand sculpt each one of this. So this is a simulation. This is Marvelous Designer. It's pretty much taken over that task, but there are times when you really have to do that. And I'm glad that I already have studied that kind of stuff, so I was able to do it. So I believe this is after the first or second day. So here again is the Lidar scan, and I had already imported it and subdivided it so it's smooth. And as you saw, it was more faceted. I think this was their original print or render. David may have done this one. And so this is again before and after. This is what they gave me. This is what they got. And so this was called this Mercury, the Glory of Commerce is the actual sculpture, and there's actually Hercules and Athena, which is a part of it. But I give them all their own names. So there's Rufus. I forgot what I call the other guy now, but then I went down and started to sculpt this, the eagle, and to get the form. And so this stuff I really enjoy. From a lot of my old studies, again, paintings of influences that I've had throughout my age. Like I said, I came up with comic books, but then I got into Frazetta, and those are guys that are heavy on anatomy. So, and those guys study, they went and investigated those Renaissance artists, the old masters, uh, to get their own style. And it's a difference in the way those are sculpted. It's not comic booky. You can't put a lot of definition in it, but they have parts of it like this knee was just killer to do for me. And there's a highlight like this face is right near that knee, and the bone joints like they use back in the day. Those old masters, Da Vinci, they use cadabras, corpse, and dissect them, and to get the actual anatomical correctness of these. So it was like is really, and since this is pays attention to, this is such a attention grabber. This is the face of the creature, it's right next to the knee. It had to be right. And so to understand those old school type of sculptures, that's why I study that. I study those types of work, art history, and again, I had to introduce a lot of the detail. It had a lot of rhythms and things. One of my fellow colleagues, John Haverkamp, he mentions like the amount of rhythms and flows. So here it is there's a certain amount of flow and rhythm that they have, and so that was a very good learning experience to me. This is not. I had a week to do this, a week and a half to do this, actually, 2 weeks almost. And normally it would take me a week, 3 weeks to do one. And I had to do this three different sculptures, different studies in 1 week each. So it was like, less than 1 week each. So it was heavy duty for me. It was quite a challenge, but I enjoyed every minute of it. And I had to again go back and fix some of the geometry technical ends, and then I helped with the printing. So again, I'm just showing that the work that was done, it was done by to reintroduce it. Now, mind you, I guess it was because of the sculpture, how big it was, or however they chose to do it. I don't know the full process. Again, I think it was actually from the the facade there. I don't know how they actually did the final one, but you can see there's no detail here for the wheat, and so I had to be very judicious of how I put the detail since I had the time frame I had. Again, it was a help to have the lidar, but I had to go back and put all the hands and stuff like that. So just wanted to let you know that when they said that it was done by meticulous detail by an artist, and I tell you, I've been an artist since I was in nursery school. I'm not very competitive now, but I was very competitive in nursery school. Anyway, uh, so anyway, I really enjoy going into these side motifs and studying the acanthus flowers. And so I've done work for manufacturing before they had 3D printing. And so I spearheaded groups there, departments and that. So here I am putting in detail. So I moved to each one and put in detail. And it was quite an undertaking for me. Uh, and again, it was done like you can't look at like even like you can go back to like Frazetta or Boris Vallejo is a big influence for me. Norman Rockwell, those type of contemporary artists. When I studied art, and so now I study digital art, using art digitally, and those medias, those tools, very convergent technology. And so sometimes I'm actually building characters, like actually take this and build in the muscle biceps so they can work dynamically when they move, the biomechanics of it, and like in Lord of the Rings or something like that. So you can see the difference between these two details here. So I probably should make more than one video on this. And so again, after I had to build in the hip. That's what my hip looked like sitting around, poking out like that. Anyway, but anyway, but so there's a lot of rhythms and flows and so much that I learned having the opportunity. Like I would have loved to be one of the artists who were fortunate enough to go to the Louvre and study direct from the Renaissance paintings. I don't travel much, and I'm proud of it, but I don't travel much. But if I did, I would be very purpose driven, and so that would be one of the places that I would go to do to the Louvre. I've always enjoyed it, studying the work there for decades, so like 40 years, maybe 30 years. So anyway, here I am putting the hand detail back in, and I love ZBrush. It is absolutely amazing technology, Oscar-winning, award-winning technology to be able to use a stylus to sculpt and almost tactilely sculpt the form, and it's just really amazing. So this was really difficult, these hands. And the funny thing is, I've learned as a sculptor is that I have my sense of gestures and aesthetics, whereas different artists from different times, they had a different sense of aesthetics and gestures, a different paradigm. So this face has a certain aesthetic to it, a very Greek. This is Athena, and this is a very Greek type of aesthetic to it. So I try not to do mine and not to let my aesthetic overpower or combat them. I'm actually trying to do work like them with these. So it wasn't about me per se. It was about their aesthetic. and it really enjoyed this. And so this is when I did these, and it was so big I had to do them each one in 3 parts, and just to be more efficient and production savvy about it. Again, Hercules, and there's a certain amount of work that had to go in to get these types of patterns, these wheat sheaves, and the feathers, and these kind of things. And so then after I got the main part, I probably moved on to this here, and this is in ZBrush, and then the other one was in Maya. Again, this aesthetic, I love the aesthetic. I love doing different people, different types of work. I do Asian, as an artist, my mentality, you have to be able to draw all types of people. And so that's my kind of universal type of view about different cultures. I enjoy being a part of it all. And so again, here these reptilian forms, and these are details that were very important to again give a certain amount of respect and honor to the work. And again, with my personal affiliation with Rufus here, it really meant a lot that to be a part of it. And again, the Guggenheim, very, if you think about the type of work that is in there, the type of priceless work that is a part of that, and to be a part of that in any way. So again, I studied like just different motifs, the acanthus leaves. So that was really important to get these types of details. And I some of it I bought insert meshes, which allow you to take, like somebody might do all Rococo type of motifs, and so you can take pieces of that. But these I actually had to build and draw it myself in Photoshop. So I might take a leaf and then make it up, one petal, so that I can do that. And so that's how I started it. And then I use ZBrush, like different types of brushes to get the forms. And then I made some more very production savvy, using the keystrokes to help me very interactively switch between keys. So it was a very progressive, growing, developmental project for me. And I tried to really get all the detail. Some of the detail is very hard, like this I can attribute to like the Boris Vallejo. I know paintings that I did that when I was studying Boris that reminds me of this. But again, they have a very different aesthetic. And so it was very, very, I was glad to be able to apply those different type of art experiences. And I used to do portraiture when I was 16 years old, and I didn't try to make it exactly like him because I would have to take more time, and I couldn't do that at the time. But I did try to get a very good likeness with the general understanding of those aesthetics at that time. Uh, so, and I really enjoy Rufus here. And again, with his body parts, understanding the anatomy, uh, the iliac crest, the weight of it, the rhythm, the flow, the anatomy, different parts of the biceps, the trapezius muscles, the different parts of the femur. And I'm not as good. I do study some uh, anatomical type of biomechanic, the medical terms, but I don't try to remember them all. But I am aware of them. And so this is before I put those areas in. And here's the hands. I'm surprised I did the hands before I did that. My thing was to do the hardest part first, to get those out of the way. So if I run out of time, then I can, the less important parts, the less focal points, I could, swing by. It wouldn't be as, so again, I had to be very judicious, but there were certain things that were very important to me. Getting the wrinkles, because he has a surprised look, like, so this god of Mercury is this got this vision of Mercury coming through. He's got to have his surprise look. So those kind of things, and the hand, like that was very important. The grip, the anatomical correctness of the hands, the proper arches in the hands, those were important. The foreshortening of that was important to me. Him, his feet wasn't as important to me. This hand wasn't as important, but this foot was. And so this foot was. And so, but definitely his hair, his face, his neck structure, the neck. And that's the kind of thing that wasn't in there. The actual, like this area here, going into here across the collarbone. And again, trying to understand the rhythms of it. And as you can see, it's not there. It's only, but it was some indications. So, like those small areas that you probably wouldn't pay attention to, were important to sell the gesture of it. So, again, I made these, and then while I was using it, and again, I said there's the detail, and so it was very meticulous and done. So I did this because they gave me the honor of mentioning and being appreciated for your work. It's just I don't really get a lot of it, so maybe I'm overreacting. But when someone of that caliber gives me that type of kudos, I just woo. I'm very happy. Again, I did buy some of the template patterns to get some of these forms. These I sculpted. This was something I was actually able to put in. And again, I was emphasizing the technology. There's a flow to this. And mind you, I have a group, and when I do stuff like this, and when I can post stuff in this group, this influence other artists, and so and they influence me as well. So I'm glad that the rhythms, the patterns, the flow, the compositions of these motifs were very important. But it was important that I had to understand that these flows and these patterns, and to really bolster the effects of the technology to show what it can do, you know, is very important. And so I do apologize. There's no short way around this. It didn't take me, it took me a while to do. This became very troublesome, this area. But I wanted to make sure I had it. So I would have to go in. So there's the artistic part, the aesthetics, and then there was the technical parts of it. So I had to make sure it printed correctly. And so at one point I was rebuilding this. As you can see, this is rebuilt here. I re-imported there. And it took several tries. And for some, it could be very frustrating, but 3 parts and the 3 main focal areas of the composition. And so but I kept them in mind. They all had to flow together, and just the whole rotundity of it. Again, I enjoyed this era and working with it and studying the Rococo age, Rococo artists, and artists that were later influenced by the Rococo age, and the Baroque, the difference between Baroque and Rococo, the opulence of that, the lavish opulence of that era was just phenomenal. It had its own sense of presence to it. So I got a chance to experience and feel that, and this kind of thing here, to be able to revisit that, and to, like I say, I'm glad I didn't go to the Louvre in a way, because I would have been just laid out on the floor, just awestruck, just ecstatic ecstasy about how amazing and phenomenal this type of artistry. And I even went into the study of modern day wood sculptor artists who actually build this, the process of how they can make something so humongous. Like this is like just, I forgot, I saw a photo of it, and it was a little girl standing here, and she only stood here. So if you actually do search on the vintage origin of this, like it was a little girl to scale to show you how big this was. Enormous. Like there's a man that would fit like right here on her face, a whole man, and her face would be like 3 times bigger than him. So it just how they controlled and how they build that, and even modern day sculptors who, it always amazed me is how you can sculpt something like this without making mistakes. So the process of how they did that was really amazing to me. So I really enjoyed it. I put my heart into it, and just to be a part on any level of such a prestigious museum such as the Guggenheim, such a high profile, international, world renowned entity as that was just absolutely humbling and just an awestrucking honor. I'm sorry if I if I just really butter it up. And I like hot butter on my breakfast toast. What do you want? I can't rap, but anyway. But I just really, really enjoyed it. I want to express, and so I'm very honored that that this was a success for them, and I had hoped as much, and so thank you very much. Love you all. God bless you all. Have a wonderful time. Again, thank you. I hope they have more projects. I don't know. Like I say, I'm not on that level with this. And again, I was a production artist, even though I will be going and say, yeah, I got work in the Guggenheim. And some people will be like, huh? Who are they? But I was like, for those who know, you know. So this is why I take the time um, to share and educate and re-educate as well as myself. So thank you very much. Have a great, great day.